Good afternoon and welcome to Facebook Live with myself, Ruth Benny of Top Schools. And this is our second Head Talk. And today we are delighted to have Mark Blackshaw, Principal of KG5. So let's get right to it. Good afternoon, Mark.
Afternoon, Ruth. Great to join you, and hello to everybody out there in internet land.
Thanks for doing this. Thanks so much. I know that you're super busy. We'll probably get into talking about some of the back to school arrangements. So we had a lot of questions, and if you have any questions, if you're watching this live, please do go ahead and type your questions in the comments, and we can ask Mark as we go. So Mark, this has been an interesting time to be a principal in a large secondary school.
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting time to be a parent as well. I think, Ruth, and obviously a teacher. But yeah, I suppose it makes life interesting. But it's been really fascinating to work with our community and to work with our teachers and to see, I guess, the agility that we know is there. And sometimes in times of need, people stand up and communities stand up, and that's what we've been really proud of at KG5.
Right. So just tell us very quickly, Mark. I think this is your second year. Is that correct?
Yeah, nearly finished the third year. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, third year. Time flies. Yep. And just very quickly, what KG5? How is it one of the longest established schools in Hong Kong, and etc.?
Yeah, well, it was founded in 1894, so that goes back. But yeah, so we've got a great history here, and quite a large school now, 1,800 students from years 7 to 13. We teach the MYP program in junior school, and then the IGCSE. And then we have our BTEC and our diploma program, IB diploma program in senior school. So 137 teachers. So yeah, quite a big place and a very dynamic and exciting place in many ways, but a little bit quieter for the last few months, Ruth, unfortunately.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how the KG5 faculty first, as the leader of the school, how have your staff been able to adapt to delivering school online?
Yeah. Well, I still remember, I think it was Chinese New Year, Ruth. I was starting my holiday, and I think it was Monday, and we found out that we wouldn't be back after Chinese New Year. And I got together with a couple of vice principals, and we went to a coffee shop inside Kung, and we started to brainstorm what would it mean and how could we use the next 5 days to prepare. And that's when we realised we just had to launch into it and take a few risks, and say to teachers that let's jump to a really simple platform that we think we can engage in, and that was Google Meet as a simple video conferencing. So we launched into that and engaged some really quick online PD for staff. And then from that Monday morning, that first ever Monday morning, we were online with our students, which I was so proud of as a principal, to know our staff had reacted so quickly, and the feedback from parents quite incredible. They were there to greet the kids on that Monday morning. And so then it sort of evolved from there, that we just got better and better over time. But that idea of interacting with the students every single day, following a normal timetable, Ruth, was the foundation of our process moving forward.
Right, that's my understanding, because I know that a lot of schools, well, there's been a huge variety of ways to deliver online learning, but at KG5 you've been delivering live lessons according to the normal timetable, right?
That's right. I mean, when we first started that first week, Ruth, we only were online for 20 minutes every lesson, and then we started our feedback loops and our surveys, and the students told us that they wanted to see more of their teachers, that sometimes when we just were sending work home, I quite felt like homework, and so they just felt like it was just too much like homework, and they felt overwhelmed, and it was actually having an impact them psychologically, because they were so overwhelmed with the work. And then we realised that we were on the right track. We just needed to make it even more like a normal lesson. So we pushed it out to a full lesson every time, so 5 one-hour lessons every day. But then we started to look at what we call pedagogy or great teaching and learning, what makes a great lesson. And over the course of the first 2 weeks, we quite dramatically shifted how we taught, mainly from student feedback and what the faculty was saying was working. And that was really going back to a model of how we teach face-to-face, with a very structured approach where we had lots of activities, we had lots of interaction, the learning goals were really clear, and we made students accountable and make the feedback and show work, because kids are lost in the fridge, they can go to the bathroom, never come back, they can do all sorts of things. Like adult weekend, I know when I study, I always end up going to the fridge, so we had to make students a little accountable, and the whole idea of having a lesson that was really structured and was based on interaction and based on feedback and based on checking for understanding, really powered our learning moving forward and set a great foundation, I think, for KG5.
But was there a concern, so if it was 5 hours straight on the screen, is there a concern that there's too much screen time? Did you consider that?
Yeah, we did, and we got some feedback around that. And I guess it's sort of a contradiction, isn't it? You do online learning, but you don't want too much screen time. But we were able to build into the lessons times where the students would go away and do independent work for 20 minutes, and that could have been on the computer, but it could also have been in their notebook. So we didn't want to talk to the students like a normal lesson all the time. We gave them space during the lesson to go and work, to go and do different things, but to come back and show evidence of what they've done. And we got better and better at how we use that technology to display students' work. We use a lot of other things like Google Docs to show and share and collaborate. So there was lots of interaction. It wasn't just looking at the screen, we hoped, and that sort of gave the students a variety and the stimulus they needed. Yeah.
Honestly, what have been some of the hiccups or challenges along the way? I mean, we don't all get it right all the time.
Yeah, I just think just getting our heads around the technology, setting up those new routines and protocols that students need to have. You know, don't be in your pajamas, don't be lying in your bed, all those sort of basic things, the new routines. You know, hiccups with technology and teachers. Some teachers really being quite comfortable with it, and other teachers really having to learn really quickly. And I think feeling that difference between, you know, Ruth's really good at this and the lesson flows really well, and then having another experience was different. So our teachers learning together and supporting each other was really important as well. But I guess it shows also how quick as species we can learn, because our teachers just went through the most incredible learning process. Some of them did anyway. I know I have as well. Period of time, and sometimes I think we can be reluctant to bring in new change, but when it's about the kids and when we have to, that inertia of movement just disappears, because such a motivation to do things for our kids. Our teachers were magnificent, our support staff, to try and do things because we had to. I guess that's the hiccups, but we really learned so quickly from our failures and from our mistakes. And
right, so you mentioned that there was a feedback loop, and you are a secondary school, so presumably you were encouraging feedback, soliciting feedback from both students and parents. I mean, how did that work? Was that online surveys or what?
Lots of online survey every week, and there was two sort of types of surveys. One was more of a general survey: how are you going? How's learning happening? Etc. And we got great feedback, particularly early on that. That's where we got the too much homework. It feels like homework feedback, and we had to shift things. The other survey was particularly aimed at particular year groups, where we said, tell us exactly about the teaching and learning process. You know, does the teacher explain what the objective of the lesson is? Does the teacher give feedback? And we're able to share that feedback with the faculties, and that was extremely powerful for them to reflect and to improve as well. So that was another type. And then we had some fun things like a Google Cuppa, I called it, where I just invite parents to have a cup of tea with me, and we limited it to 8 people. And we just had a cup of tea over Google Meet, and we just talked like we are now. I got some really brutal, honest feedback about some things were working well and weren't working. We had some laughs, and it was just building that honesty and that trust, and letting know people that we were, you know, open for ideas. And the other one was the famous WhatsApp groups that happen in Hong Kong. And you know, we had some great feedback from parents that this is happening on WhatsApp. Do you know about this? And that was a result of some of the trending feelings that was happening that we're able to both proactively and obviously reactively respond to. So I think, Ruth, that's something we're going to take forward, is those really tight feedbacks. Often we might not have formal processes for gathering feedback, and gee, it's powerful when you do it regularly. And that's something we learned I think as a school that we want to take forward.
Yeah, the famous WhatsApp groups. I mean, some principals absolutely loathe them, and others are, I mean, they are a necessary. They just are. They are what they are. Yeah, I mean, I'm just interested because KG5 has got a strong community. I mean, most of your students went through Kowloon Junior School, and you don't have a lot of churn like a lot of other international schools. So do you think that helped, that your community is quite stable and that they've been together for a number of years?
Oh, absolutely, Ruth. I think because, you know, you build community over time, and I've tried my best to build on the great work that's been here in the past since I've been here. And to me, a great school has great connections with parents. I use the phrase all the time, your child, our student, to represent that connection. And I think in times of need, in times of when community is a bit unbalanced, the strength of community really comes out. And I think that we built over time, and then we're able to continue and use this as an opportunity to build even greater trust through our communications and through how we interact together. So sometimes there's a silver lining in some of these things, that you can really stand up as a school, you can stand up individually as a leader, and you can show the way. And I think that's what we really celebrated here. I think it's brought us together in a strange sort of a way. A little bit disconnected, and I just can't wait to get the community back physically again to celebrate what we've been able to achieve through this time.
Right. But is it back to normal? I mean, the new normal, as everyone's talking about, but what will you take from this experience? Like, what will you be building back into the new school year?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe looking at a couple of things culturally. I think we've learnt that we can change, and that we talk about learning by doing here all the time as a professional learning community, and we want to learn by doing, but sometimes we don't have the courage to start something new and then learn. And I think what we learn here is culturally, as a school, students and teachers, we can learn if we decide to do something. And so I guess being a bit braver to try something new. And one example, I think, Ruth, was I think we were only 6 days into online learning, and it was the second Tuesday, and we were scheduled for a parent-teacher night. And there was a really temptation for me and others to just cancel it. And we thought, no, let's do a teacher night by Google Meet, and let's schedule 10-minute meetings right across the evening, and let's see how we can fail really crazily on that. And it was an amazing success. I'd never heard feedback on a parent-teacher night, because you can stay home as you would in Australia in your Ugg boots or your pajamas and see 6 or 7 teachers in a row, and not worry about parking, not worry about getting coming out on a cold night. So that was just one example how we would never have tried that. Now, moving forward, those sort of meetings and convenings where people can connect from work, connect from home, and still serve a really positive function is something we're going to continue to do moving forward.
But speaking as a parent, and I know KG5 parents that attended that, and I think as parent, it's a no-brainer. It's fantastic to do that, much more efficient to do parent-teacher night like that.
Yeah, and I think that blend, can we get a blend of some of those new ways of meeting, connecting with the old moving forward?
Do you think there are some children that would actually learn better in this format, online learning? I've heard a lot of parents mentioning that, or maybe some sort of flexi school idea where some of it's online and they're going to school a couple of days a week. You must have been discussing something like that.
Yeah, we have, and particularly discussed which students are flourishing in this environment and which students are not. And I was talking to a colleague today, Ruth, and he said, there's some students who have got the new brave, and he called it the new brave, whereas in the classroom, often it's the bigger personalities and the more confident kids that stand out, and they can often sometimes look really good, use a bit of bluff, etc. Whereas in the online environment, the only way you stand out is you produce really good evidence of the work you've done. And so students have really flourished because they say, look what I've done here, and they can document that work, and they can show that work, and they can put their hand up digitally in different ways. And so I think some more quieter kids, maybe students who wouldn't show themselves normally in the class, have really flourished. And then students who have got great self-management skills and self-motivated, they've really gone ahead. Where other students need that support and need to bounce ideas and really suck the energy and bounce energy off people, maybe they've struggled a little bit. But that idea of, Ruth, of that blended, I absolutely think that. With our Year 11 currently, where they're not doing their exams, so we're developing a bridging program to their diploma in the BTEC. Now, they've been, over the last couple of weeks, been online and been thriving in learning about the new IB subjects and what it takes at BTEC. So particularly for the upper students, there's a real opportunity to do, I don't know what it is, but to do something different about online learning. They can come in for a couple of days, but then have a day at home where you can learn in a different way.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
Just for those parents and students watching, thank you for tuning in today. We're here with Mark Blackshaw, who's principal of KG5. And if you have any questions at all, please go ahead and type your questions in the box below. So Mark, we've been talking a lot about what's gone, the 4 months of no school. I think certainly for certain groups of students, it's been more, I was going to say traumatic, but I mean, of course, different students have coped with that differently. But how about for the graduating cohorts? What are the arrangements that are in place for the year 11s and the year 13s?
Yeah, it's really tough, particularly for the year 13s who are, I think, so looking forward to their last year, and even with it all, it's just that rite of passage, isn't it, to go through certain things. In fact, we really feel for them, and they're going to have a special place in our heart, in a sense, moving forward. But we're still trying to go ahead with our big events. So we're planning in a week and a half to have our graduation, and we're talking about how we might do that differently. We still want to bring our parents in, and we're thinking of bringing them in really small groups so they can do all the photos and have a really private ceremony where they get their award going across stage, but bring them in small groups to do that, as opposed to having 400 or 1,000 in a hall. So we think there are ways, and we're going to live stream that event, so maybe more people around the world can engage in that normally wouldn't. We're still hoping for a graduation ceremony. We've got our hotel booked. Fingers crossed we can do that. And the big thing is we're trying to get them back in the last week to do their last day parade, and then we have a special ceremony here, which I won't go into. But that rite of passage is so important. They've lost so much this year 13 group, and we're just so hopeful, Ruth, that we can get them back and celebrate with them. So really strong memories moving forward, because they've given so much to this community and they've worked so hard. It's exciting. And year 11s are already transitioning to year 12 work. But the other thing we've done with the year 13s to keep them engaged this year is we've done a thing called a Flying Start program, where we've gathered online courses from all around the world. But we've also excitingly got a whole lot of alumni students back from online from all around the universities all around the world where our students go, and they're running online sessions on what's it like to rent a flat in UK, what's it like to be a Hong Kong student studying in Los Angeles. So things that, again, that we would never have got time to do. Year 13 students now are connecting with graduates a couple of years ahead of them and finding out all about university life, what it's like in life, a little bit earlier than they would have, and giving them some really great tips. So again, opportunity, and that's something, again, well, why can't we do that next year after they finish in a more conscious period? So funny, again, when you're given opportunities, new things arise, and things that we might want to keep.
Right. So the year 13s, their coursework or evidence of their mocks was sent over to International Baccalaureate. So they've all received their offers now. Is that right?
Well, as per normal, a lot of them have already received their offers from what they call our predicted grades. So now they'll nervously wait with the IB who does the marking now. So we just send evidence off, they mark it. They look at historical data from our school this year. They wouldn't normally do that. And they'll allocate grades. And so we're a little bit nervous, like the students, of what they'll end up being. But, we've got great confidence of the awesome results our kids have got over time. We know this group will do really well. But I guess a little bit more uncertainty this year. But I think all around the world, it's early on it was us against the world, in a sense. It was just this part of the world that was in a situation. Now, because unfortunately the situation spread worldwide, I think everybody understands now how it impacts people. I think it's a bit of a level playing field now, Ruth, whereas early on it was just us, remember?
In the beginning, it looked very bleak for Hong Kong students. I want to, as we move to close, to leave on a positive note. Are the kids going back to school? All kids?
Yeah, absolutely. We hope to get our students back just around the 25th or just before. So we'll be probably slightly different arrangements. We might get them in smaller groups or in after school at a time, but we'll be transitioning back in the last 4.5 weeks of school. So that's a really nice block of time where I think the most important thing is just to reconnect with our students again, and so they can reconnect with each other. I think they need that psychologically. Obviously, we've got tests to do, Ruth, that they'll have to catch up on. But I think it's so important to get them back and And even though there's a lot of work in the planning, we're so excited to get them back, and we think in a week and a half or so we'll hear the yells and screams of kids keeping that 1 metre social distance, but very excited to see each other again.
Right. I mean, I know that there were a long list of requirements for EDB. Ruby, thank you for your question. Ruby's asked about lunch arrangements so as to keep a safe social distance.
Yeah, so we're setting up particular areas across the school where year groups will have lunch, and they'll be doing that with the social distance that's required, and they'll be supervised in that way, and then they can put their masks on and again keep that social distance. But it's just about being really clear our expectations and also having that, and so just to keep students on track. But we're really confident we can provide a safe situation where students can bring their own lunch. The canteen won't be open, but they can bring their own lunch in a controlled way and have their lunch, and we're really confident we can manage that.
Right, because the guidelines from the EDB were suggesting half day, but I know a lot of the international schools have applied for whole days. Is that subject to approval from EDB?
Yeah, it is, and that's why it's really important that we go through a really rigorous planning process and we really minimise the risk as much as we can. And we'll only do things that comply completely with EDB recommendations, and we'll honour their decisions around that. But yeah, we're keen to get our students back for that full day, but obviously we're going to work with EDB and the health authorities to make sure that they're comfortable and we're comfortable, because we have to bring our parents on board as well, because we want our kids back, but we want them back. As safety is the #1 priority.
Right. I mean, have parents suggested that they might be concerned their children have fallen behind academically?
Yeah, absolutely, and that was always our goal, that we wanted to maximise learning and put the learning progress as something we put forward. But as you said before, I think some students have really thrived, and some students have struggled for a whole lot of reasons. I guess we learned through this process was there's such a diversity of experience out there, both in how parents are coping, the circumstances at home where the students have got internet, their study arrangements. Some people have got larger beverage rooms, some people are sharing the kitchen table with 3 hours. So there's a real diversity out there, Ruth, that we really are aware of. So I think the circumstances are quite different for all students, and some students will be really well placed, other students will have to take special care of to catch them up when they come back.
What sort of measurements are there for, except the year 11 and the year 13s, for all of the other students? Normally they'd be taking end of term tests. What other sorts of measurement measures are there in place?
Yeah, well, we've still been progressing with our what we call our formative assessment, our assessment that we do along the way in each unit. So that's still been progressing. We'll do a little bit more of that when we come back. But I think the last 4 weeks will be really in the nicest possible way, be checking for their understanding. What have they learned since early February? And just consolidating. Teachers have got a really good idea. They kind of know that stuff from the work we've been doing online, but it'll be time to connect and just check to then inform what the students can do over the break, and then hit the ground running, I guess, next academic year. But we're quietly confident that our kids are in a good shape and that our teachers have done a great job in progressing learning over this time.
Are you recommending that parents might do additional sort of make-up classes during the summer, or on a case-by-case basis?
I mean, it's case by case. We think our kids have worked really hard. I know our teachers are exhausted, so we might need a little break over that time as well. But I think it's a case-by-case thing, and I don't think there's any. The research says that there's no need to panic. Students are pretty resilient. That we'll be able to catch students up that need catching up. But as I said, we're quietly confident we've done a pretty good job, and our students have engaged strongly across this period.
Right. I think Ruby is one of your parents. She's asking about if the school will be issuing a number of sick absences. I think perhaps what she's getting at, if school is resuming on 25th of May, is it required that students return? If parents prefer that they don't return, how do you handle that?
It's just a conversation at the time. We understand if parents feel it's not quite right. We're going to continue with our online learning the best we can. So we're going to probably go to a blended model over time. So we'll understand that. It's really about the next 4 weeks or so. We're about wanting each student to continue to engage in learning, and some don't feel like they can come. We've still got 30 or 40 students overseas, and we've got a number of students that have been doing online learning and other places. So that's going to continue. If parents don't feel confident, we can support them in other ways in that blended approach.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. This has been very informative. I think we've had a lot of interest. I'm going to leave on a super positive note. Again, she must be one of your parents. Ruby says, impressive. It was so good keeping normal school timetable. We didn't miss anything in the past 3 months. I'm not sure if Ruby is one of your students or one of your parents, but she's happy about that. And I think that corroborates.
One of our parents, I'd hope she'd say she missed seeing our teachers just a little bit. So job, they may never come back. But no, thank you, Ruby, and appreciate your feedback very much.
Okay, thank you so much for doing this, and have a well-deserved summer break, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Ruth. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Mark. So thank you to the parents, and that was Mark Blackshaw, the principal of KG5. That was our second head talk. And I forgot to mention at the beginning, Mark was people's choice. We asked you at the end of the last head talk, who would you like us to bring on next for head talk? And KG5 received a number of votes. So we'll put up a poll again, perhaps. Other contenders, we're asking Victoria Shanghai Academy. They got the most votes, and we're in contact with them to ask them. And Toby Newton from International College Hong Kong has provisionally said yes, and we're waiting for a date. So who would you like us to bring on to head talk as a sort of a regular session? Just let us know, and we'll do our best to please. So for all of those that have been watching live, and for those of you that are watching on replay, thank you very much for joining us on this head talk. I've been Ruth Benny. Thank you and goodbye.